Welcome everyone. Pastor, come on up. You're going to do your prayer. Our goal tonight is to end at 7:30. So we're already late. So Pastor's going to say a prayer.
All right, good evening to everyone. Let me have your attention, please, and let's honor the facility that we are in. We appreciate Westside Church of God and the members of Westside for hosting us this evening. Amen. I'll say amen anyhow because I am in the Lord's house. Amen. And so I want to say amen, and I want to honor my pastor, Pastor Binion, for opening up the doors and giving us the privilege of being in this great facility on tonight. Those that can, join me in prayer. God, we are grateful for your mercy and for your grace. We thank you, God, even for the heat that we have experienced on today, because, God, we're grateful for the gift of life and for the honor of being yours by creation and by adoption. Bless our meeting on tonight. Bless our discussions on tonight. Let everything that we discuss be productive and be a benefit to our community. God, give us wisdom as we consider the projects and the options that are before us. God, give us, God, the ability to reason together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Lewis, who was awarded today, along with Pastor Binion and Pastor DJ Kreiner at the State of the City, the Partnership of the Year. So, yes. I think Mayor Grant called them the Three Wise Men, something like that. So, congratulations. So my name is Artie Padilla. I'm on the Oversight Committee. I will just be helping to facilitate from speaker to speaker. Like I said, we do want to end at 7:30. We did have some comments that we're running late the last few meetings, so we want to honor that. So we are holding, if you have your agenda, we're holding our questions to the end. We're going to try to speed through this so that we can have a lot of robust conversations with questions at the end, okay? So I ask that whoever comes up to speak, we honor that questions. We do have cards on the table, thank you, Sandra, on each table. Fill out that card with a question if we can't get to it tonight. And we will send that to you between now and the next meeting. So let's start. Courtney Espinoza is going to give us an update. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. He's off the phone? You're going to, okay. Forget it? Okay. Courtney, here you go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Espinoza, and I am the TCC Grant Program Implementation Manager. And we're going to go through a little bit about the Displacement Avoidance Plan. What I wanted to point out in your agenda packet, there is a draft Displacement Avoidance Plan, which is handout number 1, that's labeled. There is a workshop summary, which is also labeled number 2, handout number 2. And then there is a glossary of definitions related to displacement, and that is handout number 3. So we're going to be going over the timeline. We're going to do a quick summary of the workshop exercise. We're going to talk about the survey that we put out, and we're going to discuss the draft displacement avoidance plan. So I know this is kind of hard to see, but I just want you guys to know that we are on track with the displacement avoidance plan. We're in the public comment period. That started on May 24th, and that will end July 23rd. We had to adjust the original dates just because we needed to incorporate a great suggestion at our workshop, which was to develop this survey that we put out. So that was something that came out of the workshop that was a great idea of one of the participants, and so we took a little extra time to create that so we can get that out to the public too. Like I said, the comment period and the survey will end on June 23rd, and then we will be submitting the final draft of the plan, the final plan, on July 3rd to SGC.
Courtney, if people want to take the survey,
Yeah, so if you have not taken the survey and you want to take the survey tonight, we have 2 computers over there. They're hooked up to the internet. You can take them right now. Or if you want to, you can go home and take it on the internet. Just go to the Transform Fresno website, and there's a link to it, and you can go right to the survey.
Is there a way to open up the surveys in Spanish on there as well?
We don't have a Spanish version of this survey. Yeah, I apologize for that. Yes.
You were going to provide physical copies, but you did. Do you have any?
Yes, I do have printable copies, so if you need one and you want to take it home and fill it out, you can always mail that in to me. Okay, so here are some results that we had at the workshop. The workshop was held on May 15th, and as you can see, those boards over there, those were at the workshop, and all the participants got a chance to put their little dots on the boards, and they could choose what policies they wanted to focus on. So we identified the top 3 categories for residential, and they are tenant protections and support, preservation of affordable housing, and neighborhood stabilization and wealth building. And then the top 2 policy categories for the commercial side, which was the business stabilization and wealth building, and the protections for small businesses. So let's go back to that first slide. Of the preservation of affordable housing, the top policy chosen was the source of income non-discrimination. Of the neighborhood stabilization and wealth building, the tenant protections and support was the source of income non-discrimination. My apologies. The preservation of affordable housing was rent control, stabilization ordinances, and rent review boards. And then the top policy was actually some additional input that some of the participants voted on, and that was first-time homeowner incentives and protections. So that was a direct, yes ma'am.
You're talking about policy, so they're not in the practice of doing that.
I'm sorry?
It's not in the practice of doing that. Well, not in my practice, but the PowerPoint.
There is a glossary, and that talks about these categories. You mean the results? Yeah, I'm sorry. The results are not in that handout because we just did the tallying recently. And so we are not done tallying. That's why the survey is still open. That's why the public comment period is still going on. I'm just telling you what we've developed to date.
We don't have that.
No, you don't have a copy of the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So the top policy for business stabilization and wealth building was the rental subsidies for local and minority-owned small businesses. And then the top policy that was decided on at the workshop was the development of no-cost and low-cost business development and retention programs. And then it talks about what some of those look like. So that's where we are today as far as what the most people, I guess, voted for. And so that was the result of all those boards over there. Again, I encourage you to take the survey. I encourage you to give comments. That way we can get a full realization of what everybody wants. So the survey was emailed out on May 24th again, and it's also posted on the Transform Fresno website. Again, it closes on June 23rd. Unfortunately, we've only received 11 responses, so I really encourage you to take that survey. It is almost a mirror image of what is on those boards and how you can vote on those. And then the draft plan is also in your agenda packet. So if you do want to comment on that draft plan, then you can email transformfresno@fresno.gov, and those are due again on June 23rd. Yes, ma'am. Okay, hold on, let me read my.
My question is, if you've done this much, and most of us, at least the people at this table, don't seem to have any understanding about it. I don't know anything about the survey, and a lot of people on here don't know anything about the survey. So when was all of this done? And how many people did you include?
So the workshop was done again on May 15th. We had probably about 40 people at the workshop. The surveys were sent out via email on the 24th.
Many people don't email, there's a lot of people that don't.
Okay, and I do have copies of those surveys, so you can take one home and you can mail that in. Yes. I don't have very many, but I do have.
Yeah, and there's more. So there's paper copy and digital copy.
Survey, yeah. I'll find those and I'll get them to you. Okay, so once we compile the comments and the survey results, then we'll get from tonight's meeting. You can also do that right here. Then we are going to incorporate those recommendations into the draft displacement avoidance plan, and we will be sending that out at the end of the week. So you can comment on that. So if you've already commented on it, you should be receiving another one, and with the updated versions from the workshop, and those will be all incorporated together. Okay, and that's all I have for the update. So like I said, it's very important to do the survey and to send those comments in about the draft plan. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
And we just mailed it to city of Fresno.
The address is right on that front page, ma'am.
So the next program out.
Yes.
So you can take them.
Yeah.
If they're done tonight, we can just.
Yeah, if you finish it tonight, I can take it with me.
I can agree. Yeah, let me read it. I'll take it home. I'll take it home and just mail it.
The question I have for you is, our community, Southwest Fresno community is a mixed community. And you do not have this in Spanish. So I want to know, how did you contact all of Southwest Fresno like you were supposed to have been doing in the first place? We've been asking this question over and over and over again. You're talking about 40 people. We try to make it to meetings and we haven't seen no 40 people, but that's beside the point. If you don't have our community at heart, which is Hispanics, we have Hmongs, we have Asian, you don't have any of that. So how did you reach out to our community with this transformative climate that you're talking about? I mean, you guys are going backwards. You supposed to have did this from the beginning, but you guys didn't do it. Now you're in a rush to hurry up and do it, and you're not including our community. So as the young lady spoke over here, you don't have it in Spanish, so that means you never did contact the people in, do you have it in Hmong? You don't have it in no other but English, right? So how did you contact our community, which is Southwest Fresno?
Well, is this working?
I'm asking her, if you don't mind, I'd like for her to answer the question because she's the one making the statement. Do you have it in Spanish?
What we did.
No. I asked a question.
Spanish.
I asked you a question.
Translated it live in the meeting.
You translated it live in the meeting. Do you have it in, she asked you, did you have it in Spanish?
Yeah, I'm not answering that question.
Oh, well, that's why I asked her, because if you can't answer it, I'd like for her to answer it.
Okay, you asked about community engagement.
Yeah.
That's what I'm answering.
Yeah, well, I'm asking her the question, and see, and that's the problem. When we come out to talk to you guys, you don't answer the question. Everybody, you throw out questions to everybody else, and you don't do what you're supposed to do.
When you say you guys, I'm a part of the community.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You act like it because you're trying to answer the question. I asked her the question. So the point is this: if the city is continuing not to do their job, why is it that you're standing there and you don't have this, and you're supposed to have it in every language that includes our community? We got Spanish, we got Hmong, we're a mixed community. And you didn't let our community know.
Yeah, so if anybody needs it in a different language, just let me know and I will get it to you in a different language.
But this is the last minute.
No.
So they don't know what's going on from the beginning. This is what I'm saying. You didn't let our community know.
I think what,
I'm not talking.
I was just gonna say, my job is to help the city do better outreach going forward, so what I've got is everything needs to be.
If they don't just let all our community know, you can't continue to go forward. That's the problem. This is
Okay,
our
let's-
community. Don't do that.
We got the point.
As a suggestion for the city on outreach, maybe doing more direct mail so that individuals can be reached. It's not as expensive to do it, so therefore every door can be reached, and any information that needs to be communicated just makes it more transparent.
I agree. I have done those for those people that have come to meetings and not given me their email address and given me just their address and they were mail packets. Thank you. Do you mind filling out a comment card? That would be great to remind us. Yeah, thank you. Give your name.
Just a quick suggestion, Matthew Gillian. Can we get these same computers set up? There's a few Juneteenth celebrations events coming up. If we could get the computers set up out there, might be helpful. At a couple events maybe,
We
or
have about 2,000 people on the.
It's Saturday.
So it'd be good to have a booth.
We can connect you with the partner.
I really don't want to keep interrupting, but I think the solution would be, before you count this survey, that you start over, because you've omitted a lot of people who don't feel included. And that's the intent of all of this, is to be an inclusive process, so that all of us feel that we're a part of it. So I would just suggest that you not deal with this final survey as it is now, because it can't be complete if you've missed out on that many people. So that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I know that the gentleman just mentioned setting up a booth at Juneteenth. No, because then you're going to deceive a lot of people. Because for them to sign anything at Juneteenth, and they don't know nothing about what's going on, none of these meetings or anything, that would be deceptive and it's trickery. So to set up a booth at Juneteenth, that's taking advantage of the people, and that's wrong. So to put up a booth, I would tell myself, do not sign anything.
So my concern is those issues, but the displacement task force that already exists with Patience Milrod and Eric Payne and other members in the community has a totally different purpose. The purpose there is to handle displacements when they occur, because they will. As I understand it, the Transform Fresno requires that it be a displacement avoidance. In other words, avoid displacement at all costs. Those are two opposing goals. So how can the displacement task force serve the purpose of addressing avoiding displacement. I mean, there are streets that are going to be widened up to 4 lanes, which are going to take out with a gutter and a sidewalk and a bike trail in some cases, and a walking trail. That's going to take a lot of area and will displace people. We haven't seen any road engineering plans, so the people who really will be affected have no way of knowing. The city, we've asked them numerous times for these road plans, and they don't have them. And I believe at the last meeting, I heard that someone came from the city who works in that department, but he had no answers. How can people vote on a plan when they don't know what it will look like?
So, let me first start with a question. Is there anybody here that needs the survey in a different language other than English? You need it? 3 people? Okay, great. We will meet with you and we'll get that to you as a result of this meeting, okay? Secondly, there is a total congruity or connection between the Anti-Displacement Task Force that you mentioned and the Displacement Avoidance Plan. So here's the big picture. The big picture is that the positive picture is that with an influx of $180 million in development is going to take place in downtown Chinatown and West Fresno. And we realize that with development, there is always the threat of displacement. And so that's why 2 things have taken place. On the short term, there's a displacement avoidance plan that is a part of TCC. Hundreds of people have been notified of that plan through email. Granted, email doesn't reach everybody. We've also had a number of presentations, public presentations on the displacement avoidance plan, including the city established Anti-Displacement Task Force, and that task force is weighing in. In addition, a survey has been developed, and folks have had a chance to weigh in through the survey. And last month, we had a workshop where we had 40 people that did some pretty thoughtful work here in terms of placing dots on various policies that address displacement. What Courtney just shared is, so that you understand this, is that we are going to be, as a city, we are going to be sending in a displacement avoidance plan that is going to reflect all of the community input that we're receiving. And there are some things up there, like rent control, for instance, that are fairly controversial issues. We aren't screening those issues. We are including those in the displacement avoidance plan that's moving forward. Now, the bigger picture is that the City Council and the Mayor realize that with this ongoing development, there's going to be a continued challenge about displacement. And so the Anti-Displacement Task Force has been established that will go for 5 years. And during those 5 years, it's going to be doing 3 things. It's going to be looking at data, like things like rents and property values and actual people moving. And it's going to be collecting that data. It's going to be monitoring that data to determine whether displacement is taking place or if there are any trends. And it's going to be proposing policies. And those policies are going to then reflect back on the TCC displacement avoidance plan. So it's a living document. So this isn't the last chance that people have to give input, but it is a chance. And so if there are any other concerns about that, I would suggest that you fill out because we do have a number of other issues we want to move on towards, that you fill out a card. We will take those very seriously. We will have a translation for anybody that needs it in Hmong or in Spanish for the survey. We've got plenty of time to include that in our displacement avoidance plan information that we're sending to the state. And I think that
I have one follow-up question, which is quite simply, until the city provides the road widening plans, Nobody knows what those 5 years will mean. And it is a real disservice after this community has already faced multiple examples of demolitions. Over the decades, they need the road plans so they know whether they are going to be affected. It's critical. Thank you.
So I think I totally agree with you. Andy Manelli, who's from our Public Works Department, was at the meeting that you and I both missed, the Anti-Displacement Task Force meeting. And he said there are no road widening plans now, but the critical question that he was asked that speaks to your issue is, what he said was, there's no road widening plans because there's no funding for roads. And some wise person in the community said, well, what happens if there is funding for roads?
But there will be. The city college there will have to be.
So that will be a part of, I talked to patients this week, and that will be a part of the ongoing issues, one of the ongoing issues that the Anti-Displacement Task Force addresses, I assure you. Yeah.
All right, we are going to stay on track. Thank you, H. We have Ramey and Associates that are now our community engagement gurus that are going to be helping us out here in Fresno. We have Walker Wells he has a presentation for us.
Thanks, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. Again, my name is Walker Wells, and thank you. My job is to help the city put together a plan for community engagement for the next 5 years. So we don't know who's going to do it, but we're trying to set up these basic principles of what's important that whoever does the engagement includes in their effort. So we already heard about translation. We heard about English, Spanish, Hmong. If there's any other languages we need to know about, put them down on the paper, because if you can't access the language, you can't access anything else. Accessing information is, of course, the first critical step. Here's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm just here to explain a little bit about what we've done to date to put this plan together, some of the upfront work, the outreach that we've done so far in the community. But really what we're here to do is to ask for your help to get this right. So, there may have been some challenges with outreach and engagement and reaching people in the past. The intent here is to get it right going forward. So we have 5 years of implementation. I'm going to show you some information, and I really do need you all to respond and give us some guidance. So this plan is required by the state, required by the Strategic Growth Council, along with the Displacement Avoidance Plan and the Workforce Development Plan. So we need to do those 3 things before they're ready to start giving us money to do those 22 projects. So this is part of it. It needs to be turned in by the 2nd of July. So it's actually fortuitous that your meeting, your Outreach and Oversight Committee meeting, is happening right in the middle of this period, so we can get you all together with this. So every plan needs a goal. This is the goal that we have come up with so far. Mind your way?
No, just okay.
Oh, thank you. Tell me if I need to slow down. Okay. So the goal of this community engagement plan is to enable residents, business owners, and property owners in Chinatown, downtown, and southeast Fresno to be knowledgeable of what's happening with Transform Fresno, and to the extent that they want to be actively engaged in those Transform Fresno efforts. So step 1, to know what's going on, and step 2, to be involved if you want to be involved. So it's simple. Pretty straightforward. Did I write it wrong? I'm sorry. Is it on the survey that way too? Because all right. I'll tell you why. Ramey Associates is also working on the Central Southeast Area Plan. So I hear Southeast, I hear Southeast. Sorry, I know where I am. Okay, and then every plan needs some objectives. So tearing off of that goal, we came up with these things. So I'm going to go through them one by one, and the intent here is tell me if I'm missing anything that's really important. Okay? So the first is just clear and consistent communication to stakeholders throughout this 5-year period. So that could be website, email, text message, social media, flyers, knocking on doors, whatever it takes so people know what's going on. So that's step 1. Clear and consistent communication. To provide opportunities for people to participate as projects get implemented. Not all 22 of those have ways to be involved, but some do. The trail does. The urban farm, kind of behind the Yosemite Public Housing, does. There might be opportunities to plant a tree or trees at the new City College campus. And then there may be opportunities to just provide input on the redesign of Mariposa Plaza, for example. So we want to let you know that that exists. We want to hope that you will own the process and its outcomes, so that when all of this is occurring, it feels like it's part of Southwest Fresno, it's part of your community. And some of that is just being informed about what's going on and participate. We see a real opportunity to increase the sort of civic capacity. That sounds like urban planner language, but to strengthen the organizations that are here already and give them some more capacity, some more ability to sort of continue to do good work going forward. We know that also means cultivating new leadership. So there's been some strong leadership, but everybody gets old and gets tired, so we need to have opportunities for kids or young people to take on leadership positions. This is the new generation of community leaders. Opportunity to put on design, document what we've done, and then lastly, to celebrate accomplishments. This can be ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, festivals, events. We need to reinforce that these things are actually happening, because if all it is a bunch of these meetings, people are going to get tired. So we have to do some fun stuff. Did anybody see something that's missing? Yes, ma'am.
The problem I see with all of that is that, as Mary heard a lot of people speak, telling you guys, and you guys are trying to move on, our community has not been notified of none of this. And you still talking about doing surveys. H is sitting over there talking about displacement. In order for you to have that transformative money, you guys, the city was supposed to have had a project up and going already with a displacement in it. The city never done that. So now they're trying to use transformative displacement to put into Southwest Fresno. You can't do that. You talk about going forward. You can't go forward when our community is not aware of what you're doing. But you guys just basically ignoring us. Your ears, I don't know if it's full of wax, but you got something in it. Because you guys act like you're not hearing what we're saying. You did not inform our community. You have a lady sitting over here talking about the Hispanic community, and you're talking about giving her something for them to fill out to send in. They don't know what's going on. Why are you saying the same thing, fill this out and send it in? You got to have it in by the second. You should have did your job from the beginning. If you'd have done it from the beginning, you wouldn't have this problem. But now you're trying to put pressure on our community with the few people that's out. They do not represent over 40-something thousand people in Southwest Fresno. They do not represent us.
Okay.
Them does not represent us. Because they haven't had their foot over here where they're supposed to have it to let us know what's going on. But now he wants to say, let's move forward, and that's what you're saying. You can't do a survey like that and our community is not aware of what's going on.
Okay, thank you. And now what I'm going to do is just share what some opinions that some other people had about what would work in terms of sending out information and then also the kind of things that people want to be involved in. So this just tells you a little bit about this workshop format, and this is, I'm showing you some pictures so you can kind of see the boards, but this is the format that we took to try and get some input from the community, which I think worked okay. So we had these pop-up workshops, which is where we go to a place and we're there for a couple hours and we try and talk to as many people as we can. The idea is it's informal, it's an open house, and we go to where the people are rather than asking them all to come here or City Hall or something like that. They last for about 2 hours. We did 5 of them, one in Chinatown, one at Sunset, one at Bitwise, by South Stadium and Mariposa Plaza, and then at the West Fresno Family Resource Center. And this happened 2 weeks ago on Thursday and Friday. And then this is the information that was provided. A board of just summarizing Transform Fresno, had a map showing the location of projects, that same map. an opportunity to comment on those objectives I just showed you, and then to show your preference for being informed and being involved. And here's the boards for, that says, what are the ways you would like to, here's the objectives, and here's what are the ways you would like to get information, and it says email, website, flyers, etc. And then this just lists the different kind of opportunities to be involved and whether people were likely or unlikely to do. So more dots. This is a way to kind of take a quick poll of sort of temperature taking of the community. So here's who showed up. There were 120 people. 80 of them spent enough time to go through the whole thing, and 40 of them kind of listened for a while and then had to get back to the office or finish their lunch. This sort of shows us the racial breakdown. So it was 57% Hispanic, 19% Hispanic, 10% white, a little bit of American Indian, and also some Asian Pacific Islander. So we got some diversity, and hopefully something that was not exactly representative of the community, but at least moving in that direction. 39%, or roughly 40%, had lived in the neighborhood for 1 to 5 years, and then we had some longer-term residents. About 35% had been there for 11 years or longer. And this just shows the relationship. 27% were residents, 26% were property owners, and then we had a good number who were neither residents or property owners, probably because we were at Mariposa Plaza, so we had just people coming in who were out there at lunchtime. We were there from like 11:30 to 1:30. Here's what we heard. The top 3 ways to hear about the TCC program or Transform Fresno are social media. So all the kids are just like, put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook, and then even some of the older people are just saying, I use Facebook to check out what my grandkids are doing, just put it on Facebook. So, yeah, and we heard that. So, and then we heard other people want stuff in the mail. They want to hear from their neighborhood group, and we heard that other people just want someone to knock on the door and say, here's what's going on. So this gives you a sense of the breakdown. Social media scored the highest, followed by website, followed by email, but flyers came up even more strongly than text messages. Door-to-door is on there, and newsletters. My takeaway, we need to do everything. There's not one, we can't just have a website or just do email. So we have to figure out in this budget for 5 years going forward how to make all this stuff happen. And then we could feel like we really have authentically tried to reach out and touch everything. Any comments on this? Anything I'm missing? Yeah.
Now, would it be better just to get people that owns property and go down into the downtown and we can get your information on all people that own
like the assessor's office?
Right, go to the assessor's office and give them people that own property, send them letters. By law, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, when there's a specific project, that would be good. I think it's like your idea of just doing direct mail. So I think that could work. I mean, you said you could just get the list and do a mailing to the whole. Okay. All right, so direct mail, which is, I think, taken from the assessor's list of property.
Yeah, that's what it is. Before they started doing it, when we started complaining about it, that we didn't get any information. And not giving people what they need to know what's going on with it. And the city has a tendency to have these secret meetings without the public being involved.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this here, I didn't know anything about it until I came up with it. I said, I'm an owner. Why didn't I get a letter? Why did you guys let everybody know what's going on? Half of the people don't even know what's going on at all.
No, at least half of the people we talked to said, what's Transform Fresno? What's all this about?
And I didn't know. You little dogs and all of this.
I mean, this is in every project I've been involved in, having people feel included and feel informed. Yeah, so this is about, again, sorry, but going forward, is like how to do this better. So I think we're hearing, some of this is just first principles, like mailing, knocking on doors, Yes, ma'am.
This seems to be an ongoing problem. It seems to me by now, we would have figured out a way that's convenient for most people and that eliminates the confusion that people have and they feel like they're not informed. And sometimes stuff in the news make everybody want to do anything. But by now, you've been in enough of these meetings that I would think, hopefully, that we have figured out a way to notify everybody so that we don't go through this at every meeting.
I'm with you, and I wish it was true, but we go through this every meeting.
There's a better way.
There must be, but I think the way we know is that you have to kind of do it all of it. Because some people read emails, some people read their mail, some people listen to their emails. Yeah. Okay, I know there's more stuff that needs to happen tonight, so I don't want to take the whole agenda.
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the application says that there are 42,000 people living in 72
Yeah.
but there are only 164 eligible voters. That's a 0.39%. So I just wonder how anyone can be satisfied with that when it happened. You know, when people first signed up to vote, there should have been like, oh, we'll come back out here. I can't hear.
Yeah, no, I can't hear. So the comment was, how many people are in the census? So there's 42,000 people on the application in Southwest Fresno.
And,
9271. And then in the process of developing the projects and the voting, there were 164 people who were involved. Again, this predates my involvement. So these ladies asked the same question, how is this a representative sample of the community? I don't know, I wasn't part of that process. But I think here's what's relevant at this point in time is that group of 164 people, the collaborative, doesn't exist as an entity any longer, and the sort of the vehicle for the community to communicate their wishes to the city is the Outreach and Oversight Committee, which is the meeting that we're up to. And that's 16, yeah. Granted, like the projects have been identified, I think the opportunity is to make sure that the projects turn out as well as possible, and as they get articulated, there's community input. I think structurally, this is the format that currently exists. If it isn't working, then put down a comment card and say we need some government structure to allow greater level of involvement in decision making. Something like that. Yes?
No.
4. 164.
eligible voters.
But you said that gone.
I think they were called the collaborative, and there were some, you had to be property owner, business owner, resident, and you needed to go to a certain number of all of the meetings to be an eligible voter, and again, this is before I was involved, but my understanding is there were multiple proposals, and they ultimately agreed on Proposal 5, that is that list of 22 projects that now is the Transform Fresno list of projects.
So that group no longer exists.
That sort of format of that group doesn't exist. And then some of those folks are on the Outreach and Oversight Committee, but this is a group of 16 that is running this meeting that we're at tonight. Okay? Did I get that right? Close enough?
I think let's finish the presentation and then open it up for input and questions.
Sure, okay. All right, so we did this one, and then this is just people's interest in participating. And so people liked a couple of these ideas here, which was, we talked about a leadership development program that got quite a high score of interest, I think we're in the 80s. Public workshops to guide the implementation of specific projects. Again, how Mariposa Plaza gets redesigned, or the trail, or there's a number of other things that actually need design input. I cooked up this idea of an annual Transform Fresno Summit, where there could be speakers and panels and people sharing projects and some type of celebration. That seemed to be well received. Some people wanted to volunteer. Some people said they like to go to neighborhood project update meetings. And a number of people said they would be willing to do future surveys, granted they're in all 3 languages or however many languages we arrive at. We had other things in there like, do you want to go to a lot of meetings in the evening? And people are like, not so much. They would be more interested in doing stuff or going to events where they're sort of sharing about the projects. So that gave us a little bit of input. The least selected activities, I think people weren't so interested in being a neighborhood ambassador. They were 50-50 split about coming to this meeting. Some people were like, I like meetings, and others were like, no way. And then we had a couple general comments. Look at job creation and training. So some of the partners do that as sort of a component of their projects, the low carbon transportation and the grid alternative solar installation. Think about what happens after TCC is over. Be aware that these investments need to be maintained, and then a focus on young people of color. And just a few other ideas include youth, have existing community groups or organizations organize events, celebrate successes, and several people said, like, let's make some short videos. People like watching videos. That's engaging much better on the STAG website. And then finally, here's the next steps in what we're doing on this community engagement plan, which is we have a survey ourselves. It's also on the Transform Fresno website. I think we have 19 respondents, so please fill that out. It follows very much the same format as the workshop. My job is to integrate the survey results into this original document that you can also find on the website. We need to come up with more specifically what we're going to do, the budget, and sort of the description that goes along with it. Have that available for comments, finalize it, and get it off to the state by the 2nd of July. So the best way really for you to give input is tonight, because I'm here and I can hear it, or to go online and either do the survey, or you can go through the draft framework plan and send an email that ultimately goes to Courtney with your comments. So I'm done. Other comments from you? So there's one here that says thank you. There we go. Thank you for listening. Other comments?
One of the things that I noticed is, I know they hired you as a consultant, but there's also people in the area that they can more or less identify with. And from an experience, I used to own business in a predominantly white neighborhood. However, I hire people that look like individuals in that neighborhood to communicate to people. So there's always going to be implicit bias, and so to remove that barrier and be able to more communicate and outreach, then what I was saying to him is basically that I know he's a consultant hired for the city, that I know that there's marketing companies, other advisors or consultants within the community that they can hire that can identify with the people of the color, minority, Asian, all the other demographics, so that it doesn't have an implicit bias or a lot of friction. Because from my experience, I used to own a business in a predominantly white neighborhood. However, I hired individuals that look like individuals in that neighborhood. Not to say that wasn't equal opportunity, it just works better that way. And that's just my opinion. What you guys do is your preference, but there is other businesses or professional consultants that can assist you, that you should reach out to, that can maybe have better results and reach the demographics that you're not targeting.
I'm totally with you. So earlier today we were having a conversation about how to make sure that local organizations are involved in the outreach again going forward, and to acknowledge that there's a number that are in the African American community, Latino community, the Hmong community that know everybody, are trusted voices, and way better at going out and talking to people and understanding than I will ever be. And so that idea is definitely in the plan. And then the question is how to do it in a way that's effective and fair and not taking advantage of people. So some of the conversation is if they're going to do that work, they need to be compensated because it's real work. And we shouldn't just be asking them to do it for free. So excellent. And I'm totally with you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
How are you going to make your deadline in July? We are already almost in the midst of June, and you haven't done what you're supposed to do? You're saying moving forward. Moving forward from July the 2nd, is that what you're saying?
More or less, yeah.
Well, how you gonna move from July the 2nd and you wanna do these surveys and get it in? That's what you're saying, right?
So here's what we're doing, is the state needs a very specific thing by the 2nd of July, so we're gonna get them that. But we also know that the city needs something that has a little more detail and a little more nuance, so we're able to get the state what they need, but also give ourselves a little more time to, I think, get the survey results, think about what they mean, and make sure that we're folding that in, but also thinking, to this gentleman's point, about this, the best ways to include the local groups. So we're kind of meeting the state's deadline, but we're not going to make it rushed or not good enough just because of this deadline.
You still didn't answer my question.
What's the question?
Okay.
I'll
My question to you is this.
Yes.
They did not do their job. You're not doing your job. Pop-ups don't help. Why is it you haven't notified all our community in the different languages, and you got July the 2nd to get that in? So what you guys planning on doing, you're planning on lying to the state, right? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You got to be lying to the state because you haven't gotten in contact with our community. It's over 40-some thousand people here. And you're talking about moving forward. So the only way you're gonna move forward is you guys gonna need another deadline. And you're gonna have to include our community. So in other words, what I'm asking you, are you gonna lie to the state in order to get the funds because you did not notify our community as a whole?
I mean, to answer your question, we're not going to lie to the state, but what I can clarify is the state did not say you must reach out to all 40,000 people in this area. Here's what the state said, right? Make up this very simple plan and have one workshop. And what we said is, we don't think that's the best way to do this. We would rather try and do 5 of these pop-ups because we think we would get to talk to more people in different parts of the community. And our thought that that would be at least as effective, if not more effective.
Can I have a copy of that?
Of the...
What you said, the state culture. Can I have a copy of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can send you the state's requirements for this community engagement plan. Sure. Yeah, easy. Okay, other comments? And these are suggestions. You know, again, we're asking for help. So did I miss anything? Okay, if I did, I can sense they have more to do tonight than hear from me. So if there's any other good idea you have, write it down on those cards so we can get it in. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So yeah, and reminder, this is for, they're creating the community engagement plan. So this is a planning process, and someone else, maybe somebody else is going to implement the plan later on. Okay, so next up is HB's, and he's going to give us an update. What are you giving us an update for, H? I forgot. Clean shared mobility. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, we have a great project called Clean Shared Mobility. Matthew's here. Who else are some of the other partners here from Clean Shared Mobility? Great, James. And
Tara's in the office. She just her train.
Right, I heard her train was held up above Madera. Yeah. So Clean Shared Mobility is a great project that's going to offer a number of clean mobility options that are accessible by the community. There are, I think, 6 partners that are a part of that. We've had some difficulty with some of the partners in terms of how that partnership is working. Guess what? The partners are working that out. And there's been some very frank and direct conversations among the partners. And I'm just here to report to you that the partners are working that out even as we speak. So we'll keep you updated on that. It's one of our great projects. We want the Outreach and Oversight Committee has been very vigilant and in hearing from folks in that partnership, and we will keep you updated on that. That's all we have to say for right now.
We're making progress.
We are making progress. Thank you.
All right, so running ahead of schedule. That was quick, H. All right, so we have time for any questions from what we've shared today. Any questions you might have from things that weren't shared today that you maybe you wrote down on your card. Questions? Thoughts? Sure. Yes.
I know that there's a committee that's working on the lack of non-displacement. So maybe we could have someone to bring us together and tell us how these two groups are melding together, oversight and the non-displacement, so that we get a feel for how we work together.
Did you want to comment on that?
Okay, so I'm on the Anti-Displacement Committee, and we pretty much have like a 5-year plan of getting the community together and to hear their opinions on what we should do to handle this anti-displacement. I know we had a workshop explaining about this in Chinatown. I thought it was very productive. But that is to, I mean, we have 2 projects in Chinatown with the TCC. So the stuff that we need to get into the state is just to make sure that nobody from the TCC projects that are happening with these projects in particular, and all these projects need to be done within, I think, 5 years. You have to spend the money. That is, I'm going to make sure as part of the Anti-Displacement Committee that no TCC project is going to force anybody to get displaced. And so we need to get that like very, very soon. But the whole 5-year plan of getting anti-displacement all throughout pretty much Southwest Fresno and South Fresno, which includes Southeast and Southwest and like West Central, I guess. That is an important thing that we're going to be moving forward towards. So, especially hearing the community feedback on what to do about this anti-displacement, I think we've got. It's not going to be 5 years to figure it out, but we're going to be doing a better job at that. So, if that means anything.
Was it helpful?
Well, I still need to know the connection. I got some of it, but I still need to make sure I'm making myself clear. I need to understand the Oversight and Outreach Committee works with or in conjunction with the Anti-Displacement Committee. So how do we do it together? That's really what I just kind of want to know.
Okay. Let me see. Would you like to try to answer that? Sure. Or Eric is our vice chair for the anti-displacement? What's the connection between?
Good evening, Eric Payne, Vice Chair for the Anti-Displacement Task Force. I guess we've actually had a pretty in-depth conversation around the shared responsibility of the Anti-Displacement Task Force and the TCC Oversight Board. I don't know if Ivanka is here, but from Leadership Council, but we've kind of been going back and forth where she will come and participate in some of our meetings, and then I come and participate in these meetings, so we can kind of stay informed and abreast of the issues that are evolving in the TCC planning process. And so if I can go into further detail, Ms. Curry, I'm happy to do so, but hopefully I address some of your concerns.
Did you mention Ivanka? I think she works in the Leadership Council.
Yes.
So that didn't really give me a plan. I don't know if I'm asking the right question.
So Ivanka is on the Outreach and Oversight Committee,
Right.
but she is also on, she's on
No,
the,
Grecia.
Grecia is on the, thank you, Grecia is on the task force. So let me take about 5 minutes and give you a quick overview to answer Mrs. Curry's question. Right. Let's take your packet here for a minute. I'll get right back to you, Brunette. Take your packet here for a minute, and let's just walk through this for a second. And so, because this stuff is complicated, right? It's a bit complicated. We're going to have $180 million investment in downtown Chinatown and West Fresno. And that investment is going to create some opportunities. There are going to be folks that already, there are developers in the city and outside the city that are purchasing land based on future development in those three communities. Already, that's happening. Okay, right now, the question is, what are we going to do wisely as a city and as a community? And the questions that you all are raising are absolutely right on target. What are we going to do to make sure that A, residents don't get pushed out, and B, businesses don't get pushed out? Okay? So there's two pieces to that as it relates to TCC. One is directly related to TCC. We have a displacement avoidance plan. Now let me just tell you, in your packet here, these pages right here, and this is so basic, it's almost embarrassing. This is what the state asks for us. They asked us to put together these sheets right here that identify specific things that we're going to do to avoid displacement with a TCC project, okay? So you got one sheet, two sheets. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? 3 sheets, 4 sheets. That's it. That's the displacement avoidance plan. All right? Now what we've done is we recognize the huge concern in the community relative to displacement. Because guess what? This community has been ravaged over the years, right? That's the narrative. If we're going to change the narrative, we better address displacement ahead of time. So there's a couple of ways to do that. One of the ways that we are beginning to do that with TCC is developing this glossary. So think of this as a toolbox. Look at the next page down here, the one that has the blue bar at the top. Okay? So this is us. Fresno developed this. Other places in California don't have this. But this is a glossary. This is the toolbox that folks want to use for anti-displacement. So the blue is residential and the green is business. So take a look at the bar at the top. Production of affordable housing is one big area. If we don't produce affordable housing, guess what? People are going to be displaced. Okay, so that's one big piece. And then these items down the left-hand margin are the tools in that part of the toolbox. So in terms of production of affordable housing, one of the tools that we could do would be incentives for inclusionary housing. And then there's an explanation of what that is. And there are other tools. Then you go to the next page, and you look at the next big block. It says preservation of affordable housing. Not only do we need new affordable housing being built in our communities, right? But we also need to preserve those housing units that are affordable now. Some folks, some developers have built developments with public funds, with an assistance of public funds, in exchange for making a portion of those units affordable. Well, guess what? There's a time limit on that. So do we as a city, are we as a community watching the time clock on those affordable units and either replacing them or assuring that they stay affordable? There's a whole set of tools in that toolbox. Like I said, this is complex, but it's not too complex for us. That's why this glossary was developed. The next part of the toolbox, take a look, stay with me, we're almost through it, is tenant protection and support. Another way that people get displaced, right, is that rents start going up. And people get displaced, and you never hear about them because they're tenants. They aren't property owners. They're tenants. Okay? So what do we do to protect the ability of tenants, especially low-income tenants, to to stay in the homes that they've chosen to live in, maybe for many years, but as development increases and rents go up, what's to keep those folks from being pushed out? Does that make sense? Then there's a couple of pieces here. There's one final piece on residential, neighborhood stabilization and wealth building. So for instance, what are things that can be done to give people home ownership opportunities? These tools, by the way, are just some of the tools in the toolbox. Some of y'all came up with some additional tools at our last meeting, at our workshop, and you wrote them in. You see them on those boards. This discussion is really important, and there's a lot of passion around it, and there should be. This discussion needs to be a 5-year discussion, so it doesn't just end with us checking in the boxes that the state wants us to check in. So for that reason, a second group has been established by the city council and the mayor, which is a task force. That task force has community representatives on it. It has advocacy group representatives on it. It has civil rights attorneys representatives on it. It has people who are expert and people who have vested stakeholder interests in this going forward. And that task force is going to go on for 5 years. And just like Morgan said, that task force not only covers our TCC target area, but a bit more, mainly in the southern part of the city. And our group, as TCC goes on, and as these projects develop, good things are going to happen. And people are going to come to ribbon cutting, they're going to come to groundbreakings, they're going to come to ribbon cuttings. Folks are going to be excited, and momentum is going to build over the next 5 years. As that happens, though, we also want to make sure that our IQ, as it relates to displacement, continues to increase. And this group will be eyes on the ground, watching. Is displacement happening? Is displacement threatening? And then we'll be letting folks in the city know through the Anti-Displacement Task Force about what tools need to be done. Over the next 5 years, we may decide, well, this tool wasn't enough. We need to get these 2 additional tools in place to make this happen. So this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And the reason is because development is a good thing, but development without justice is a bad thing. Development is a good thing, but gentrification without a sense of justice is a bad thing. And so we have the opportunity as a community and as a city to do something very unique. These issues are not only raging in the Bay Area and coastal communities in LA, but they're out of control. The horse is out of the barn in many of those coastal communities. It's done. But here in Fresno, we have the opportunity with committed folks from the community, ramped up with tools in their hands and demanding from their city elected officials that they embrace the tools that are necessary to address displacement. And I'll just close with this. 3 boring things that the task force is going to do. They're going to collect data. Data is important. Fresno State is going to be a part of helping us collect that data, and others. Number 2, monitoring. You got to take that data and find out what it says about the community. What are the trends? Are there people being moved out? Are rents moving up? And are they moving up? Are Section 8 folks moving out because Section 8 folks can no longer be a part of the community? Okay? So data, monitoring, and then action. And that's policy action, and then things like building affordable housing, making sure that that actions take place in the community. So the TCC piece is small, but it's mighty, and your voice is important. And yes, we're checking the boxes, because we're going to get these projects going. And this has been an arduous, paper-filled, we killed millions of trees through this process, believe me. So don't give up. Don't quit being angry or concerned or expressive. That's what this is all about. But the main thing is, let's fill up the toolbox. Let's use the tools. And let's be an informed part of our community so that we can see development take place with a sense of justice.
Well, hold on. Vanessa, one word to follow up for your question, then we'll go to Ms. Harris.
You I have heard you go to the other? Because I had my hand up first.
I just wanted to clarify, just really quickly, for Mrs. Curry's question. So hello everyone, my second is I'm with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, part of the Anti-Displacement Task Force. So just kind of like a short answer is that these are two separate processes entirely. The Anti-Displacement Task Force is looking at the overall picture of potential displacement. We know it's actually happening nowadays, especially those who work directly with community members. Rents are going up, people are getting kicked out for whatever reasons. For retaliatory reasons. And so, yeah, separate process. However, because we do see the displacement avoidance plan as an opportunity, as a task force, we will be submitting a comment letter in support of these decisions that the community voted on and that there will be voting. And hopefully, everyone continues to submit those. So we will be submitting a letter saying, yes, we're in support of what the community is saying.
You want to talk about the horses? We got a dead field. We ain't got no horses here in Fresno. Now, we was at the meeting with Ms. Milrod, and what she said was these are two totally different things, and they're not dealing with TCC. Now that came out of her mouth. So it doesn't have anything to do with TCC. They are on a total different thing than TCC. But what H&M is trying to do is they're trying to incorporate it in it because, like this gentleman said, they got a deadline. So the point is, they're not telling the truth, they lie. That's the point. When you ask that question, they're not on the same page. Patient Milrod said they're not. That was her statement at the meeting. She said they're totally two different groups doing two different things. They're not doing the same thing. And I beg to differ. If you guys do write a letter, we're gonna write a letter to whoever funding you because that does not represent our community. See this stuff that you guys are doing and what you're talking about, this gentleman talking about moving forward, you guys are not even paying any attention to our community, period. We're telling you guys you did not notify our community. You telling us you got a deadline. We don't care if you do. You should have done what was right from the beginning, and you guys didn't do it. So that's the point. So we want to see you try to go after these dollars because we want you to get sued. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we intend to make sure that the Inspector General find out about this and that you get audited and sued again. Because you guys are not doing your job. You're not going to come in here and do our community the way that you're doing. You need to inform everybody, go back from the beginning, inform all of our community. We have Hispanic people sitting here, they don't even know what's going on, H. And for you guys to say that and for her to stand up over there and say that, it's not the same thing. Patient Milrod and them stated that at the meeting. They're not. They don't have anything to do with TCC.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris, and I will not call you a liar. I will not call you a liar, but I heard differently from patients, and I met with her this week, and she sees the link between the two groups. And so this group is very important, and the issues that you're raising are very important. It's also very important that, as Mrs. Milrod mentioned to you in one of those meetings, that we not call people liars. Because I understand, I'm not going to accept that, but I'm going to accept your freedom to be able to say basically whatever mean thing you want.
Well, that's not me. That's just a fact.
But I heard Mrs. Milrod differently, and I meet with her every 2 weeks, and there is a connection. So it's a vital connection. And it doesn't mean that we have to be overly optimistic. It means that we have to be vigilant.
So I asked Patience Milrod the same thing at a different displacement meeting, and she seemed very frustrated with the effort to try to bring these two different goals, opposing goals together. But you can ask her directly. My question now is, if City College is going to break ground in 2020, and these roads have to be widened in order to provide students and faculty and everybody access to the new City College satellite campus, how can that happen without taking people's homes and businesses? I just can't imagine. Eric, do you know?
Let's let Fresno City College address that. George?
So there will be some widening at church in front of the college. It will not be at the expense of any housing. The school district and the college are granting, as part of a partnership with the city, that space in front of the college to widen church in our direction. I don't know what, I haven't seen, I know that they're doing, okay, so I know that they're doing a bicycle trail in front of ours, and that's part of it.
Okay. Also, another hat that I wear is a trustee with State Center Community College District, representing the southern portion of where the new college is going to be built. And to address some of your question and what I think George is also trying to communicate, what I think George is trying to communicate is we already own the property that will require any expansion on the corridor that has been identified that you're referring to. So the neighbors that are adjacent to the property we will not be eminent domaining any of their property because the land that we own is already vacant.
What about the section in front of it?
So the section in front of Edison is a different lot that you've identified that is not a part of the State Center project, and so the city would have to speak to that specifically.
I think those are the issues that are the ones that relate to other areas.
But City College depends upon those areas widening in order to link into them, doesn't it? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any last, well, we better not answer any more questions. It is 7:23 and we are going to end. Our next community engagement meeting would be in September, in mid-September. So you'll get an email on that, or we'll post it on our website, or we have to mail it to folks. We heard you about languages, we heard you about mailers, and those of us on the Oversight and Outreach Committee, we need to make sure that we follow up at our next meeting to hold them accountable. All right, so thank you guys so much. We do have some of our project vendors here. Feel free to ask them questions. Appreciate you all. Have a great evening. Take care.